Some wounds don't bleed. They whisper. They shape you in silence. And the most devastating ones are often disguised as love. Because what happens when the very person who was supposed to nurture you ends up shrinking you? What if the warmth you received was conditional? What if your need to be good was never about virtue, but survival? This is the unspoken truth behind the mother wound, a wound that doesn't leave scars on your skin, but carves patterns into your soul. It teaches you to seek validation instead of self-worth, to confuse attention with love. And worst of all, it makes you believe that your pain is your fault. You may have grown up thinking you were just too sensitive, too intense, too dramatic, too much. But what if none of that was true? What if you were simply trying to be seen by someone who didn't know how to see you? In this video, we're going to explore how a mother's absence, or her possessive love, can shape the entire trajectory of a daughter's life. We'll uncover how guilt becomes a leash, how being the good daughter becomes a cage, and how breaking free can feel like betrayal, even when it's your only path to healing. You'll learn how to name the wound, break the inherited silence, and finally come home to yourself, without shame, without fear. If you've ever felt invisible in the name of love, this video is for you. If you're tired of living for someone else's version of who you should be, stay with me. Because by the end of this journey, you won't just understand the mother wound, you'll understand how to stop it from running your life. Before we begin, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, so this kind of truth keeps reaching the people who need it most. There are wounds that bleed silently. No bruises, no screams, just a lifelong ache that hides behind perfectionism, people-pleasing, and chronic emptiness. One of the deepest of these wounds is the absence of a mother who was physically there, but emotionally unreachable. She made the lunches. She said the right things, but her soul never really touched you. This is not about blaming her. It's about exposing the invisible pattern that shapes millions of women into ghosts of themselves. Because when the mother is emotionally absent, the daughter doesn't grow up feeling unloved. She grows up feeling unworthy of love. That belief becomes the blueprint for every relationship, every dream, every internal dialogue. And worst of all, she doesn't even know she's carrying it. She just thinks something is wrong with her. If you've ever felt like you're too much and never enough at the same time, this is where it started. This mother wound isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. It fractures the daughter's connection to her inner truth. She learns early that her feelings are too intense, her needs are too demanding, her voice is too loud. So she becomes smaller, quieter. She learns to monitor the emotional weather in the room before daring to exist. And this turns her into a master at disappearing. At the office, she over-delivers but never asks for a raise. In love, she gives everything but never feels chosen. In friendships, she listens endlessly but forgets what her own voice sounds like. None of this is a conscious choice. It's the unconscious loyalty to an early lesson that her presence is only tolerable if she doesn't take up space. If you've ever wondered why you shrink yourself even when no one is asking you to, this is the seed of that silence. When love feels like absence, the nervous system adapts to chase what's unavailable. This is the cruelest part of the unhealed mother wound. It distorts the daughter's sense of safety. She becomes magnetically drawn to partners who ignore her, criticize her, or breadcrumb affection. Not because she enjoys pain, but because pain feels familiar. Her inner child thinks, "This is how love feels, I recognize this." And when someone finally offers real care, presence, consistency, she panics. She pulls away. She questions their motives. Because deep down, love that sees her feels foreign. It's not rejection she fears, it's being seen. To be seen means risking rejection of the real self. So she stays in the loop, chasing absence, fearing presence. And society calls it bad luck in love. But it's not luck. It's programming. This daughter often grows up to be the strongest in the room, resilient, smart, accomplished. But her strength is a survival mechanism. It was born out of emotional starvation, not empowerment. She learned to rely on herself because no one else was emotionally available. But inside she's tired, not because she's weak, but because she's never truly been held. Her accomplishments don't feel like victories. Her relationships feel unbalanced. Her smile often hides a scream. And the cruel twist? Most people admire her for how put together she seems. No one suspects that behind the success is a child still waiting to be seen by the one person who never looked. Healing this doesn't mean hating your mother. It means grieving the love you needed and never got. That grief is sacred. And it's the first step toward coming back home to yourself. Even in adulthood, the invisible mother still lives in her mind. Her voice becomes the inner critic, the one that says, don't be too loud, don't ask for too much, don't shine too bright. This voice sabotages her dreams, poisons her relationships, and keeps her trapped in cycles of guilt. And every time she dares to step into her truth, the guilt creeps in. What will they think? Who do you think you are? This is not a coincidence. It's internalized maternal absence. But the most dangerous part, she believes this voice is her own. She doesn't recognize it as a script. That's how deep the programming runs. Real freedom starts when she stops confusing her thoughts with her truth, and when she learns to speak to herself with the voice she always needed to hear. This pattern also affects her relationship with other women. She may admire them, but deep down feel threatened. She may crave sisterhood, but sabotage it. Because the absence of maternal warmth makes closeness feel unsafe. She fears being judged, rejected, overshadowed. So she either isolates or becomes the helper, the caretaker, the listener who never speaks. But intimacy without reciprocity is just self-abandonment in disguise. To break the cycle, she must learn what it means to receive. Not just compliments or help, but genuine emotional presence. She must teach her nervous system that safety doesn't come from disappearing. It comes from being seen and not punished. And that's terrifying. But it's also liberation, because once she learns to tolerate being seen, she no longer accepts being invisible. Many daughters of invisible mothers find themselves repeating the pattern in their own motherhood. They vow to be nothing like their mothers, but unknowingly swing to the opposite extreme, overgiving, overprotecting, overcompensating. And in doing so, they sometimes lose their sense of self, because the wound still lives inside, unexamined. Healing isn't about becoming a perfect mother. It's about becoming a whole woman, one who can say, this is where it hurt, this is what I didn't get, but I choose to stop passing it on. That moment of awareness is revolutionary. It transforms pain into power, and it creates space for a new kind of love, one that doesn't demand sacrifice but invites authenticity, one that doesn't hurt to receive. What makes this wound so persistent is that it's socially invisible. No one questions the mother who did her best. No one sees the daughter who's emotionally starving in silence, but the silence must break, because the absence continues to echo until it's named. Until the daughter says, enough. I deserve to exist without shrinking. I deserve a voice that doesn't apologize for being real, and that's where her rebirth begins. In the decision to become the mother her inner child never had. In the choice to stay with herself, especially in the moments she wants to run. This is not about blame, it's about breaking the inheritance of emotional scarcity. And as she learns to mother herself, a new blueprint forms, one based not on fear, but on self-respect. And in that choice, she finally takes the first step toward real autonomy. If you've ever felt like you were raised to disappear, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters, and it's time we hear it. Let this video sit with you, then check the first pinned comment. There's a selection of powerful resources waiting for you. Not all prisons have bars. Some are built from soft hands and sweet words. Some are wrapped in the language of love. This is the darker side of the mother wound, when affection is used not to nurture, but to dominate. The daughter grows up believing she's loved, protected, even cherished. But underneath that surface lies a chilling truth. Her autonomy was never welcome. Her emotions had to be filtered. Her desires had to align with her mother's expectations. And her decisions had to pass a test. Will this make her proud or disappointed? In this dynamic, love becomes a leash. The daughter isn't allowed to grow beyond the boundaries of who her mother needed her to be. And the most dangerous part? She doesn't even notice the leash. because she was taught to call it devotion. This kind of possessive love doesn't always scream. It whispers, "You're my everything. I only worry because I care. No one will love you like I do." These phrases sound harmless, but they carry a hidden message. You owe me your life. The daughter learns to feel guilt every time she wants to step away, set a boundary, or make a choice that's her own. And because guilt feels unbearable, she folds. She abandons her own voice in exchange for peace. But that peace is a lie. It's the silence of self-erasure. It's the weight of living for someone else's narrative. Over time, this guilt becomes internalized. She doesn't need her mother to control her anymore. She does it to herself. She punishes herself for being different, for wanting more, for trying to leave the cage. The world often praises this dynamic. She's such a good daughter. She never gives her mother trouble. But being good has a cost, one that's paid in dreams delayed, identities erased, and lives half-lived. The good daughter becomes the woman who always checks in before making a decision. The one who can't relax unless everyone else is okay. The one who apologizes for existing outside of others' expectations. She might even become a therapist, a teacher, a nurse, roles where she's needed, validated, useful. But inside, she's starving for permission to just be, to make a mistake, to choose her own path without guilt. Possessive love doesn't teach her how to love. It teaches her how to conform. And conformity slowly kills the soul. This possessiveness often comes from a wounded mother, a woman who never got to live her own life, who poured all her unmet dreams into her child, hoping she'd do it better. But love born from trauma can still traumatize. The daughter becomes an emotional surrogate, carrying burdens that were never hers. She becomes the mother's therapist, confidant, emotional regulator, and in doing so, loses touch with her own emotional needs. This dynamic creates an invisible role reversal. The child becomes the parent, and the price is steep: emotional exhaustion, resentment masked as gratitude, and an overwhelming fear of disappointing the one who never truly saw her. This isn't just unhealthy, it's soul-fracturing. As she enters adulthood, this woman often fears success, not because she lacks ambition, but because thriving feels like betrayal. Every step she takes toward her own life feels like a step away from her mother's pain. She hears the unspoken accusations. "You think you're better than me after everything I gave you?" So she holds back. She chooses safe jobs, safe partners, safe dreams. Not because she wants safety, but because guilt made her allergic to freedom. And society reinforces this, praising her selflessness, ignoring her silent screams. But inside, she knows. She knows that love shouldn't cost her identity, that care shouldn't come with a cage. One of the hardest parts of healing this wound is that it doesn't look like trauma. It looks like closeness, like loyalty, like a mother and daughter who talk every day. But closeness without boundaries is not intimacy, it's fusion, and fusion is dangerous. It blurs the line between love and control, between care and codependency. The daughter raised in this fusion often struggles in romantic relationships. She either loses herself in them or avoids them altogether, because she was never taught how to coexist, only how to merge or disappear. Real love feels overwhelming because it requires a self she never got to build. Breaking this cycle feels like betrayal. It feels like ripping your heart out. But it's not betrayal, it's birth. It's the beginning of becoming your own person, of untangling your identity from someone else's wounds. It means learning to say no without guilt, to take space without apology, to choose yourself without fear. And this doesn't mean you stop loving your mother. It means you stop sacrificing your life at the altar of her pain. Real love allows difference. Real care respects boundaries. And healing begins when you stop asking for permission to be whole. Have you ever felt like being loved meant being controlled? Share your thoughts in the comments. Someone else might need your story to heal. And don't forget, there's a hand-picked list of tools waiting for you in the pinned comment. You're not alone in this. She never caused problems. She always smiled. She kept her room clean, got good grades, said thank you, and never raised her voice. She was the perfect daughter. But no one ever asked what it cost her, because behind every good daughter is a woman who learned to betray herself to keep love intact. She learned that love meant self-abandonment, that silence was safer than truth, that being good was the only way to survive the emotional instability around her. And that's where the trap begins. The more loyal she is, the more invisible she becomes. And by the time she realizes it, her whole life is shaped by obligations that were never hers. Being good wasn't a choice, it was a strategy for survival. The good daughter becomes the woman who apologizes before speaking, who over-explains her no, and who can't rest without earning it. She takes care of everyone, but no one truly knows her. Her friendships feel one-sided, her relationships feel heavy, and her dreams feel selfish. Because deep down, there's a rule burned into her psyche. Don't upset anyone, don't outshine your mother, don't be too much. And this rule doesn't fade with age. It becomes the filter through which she makes every decision. Even when she thinks she's being independent, a part of her is still asking, will this make them proud or will they leave me for it? That's not freedom. That's emotional servitude, dressed as loyalty. This type of loyalty is rarely questioned because it looks virtuous. Society rewards her, family praises her, even spiritual communities tell her she's evolved. But inside she's numb, not because she's broken, but because she's exhausted from living a life curated to make everyone else comfortable. And anytime she tries to reclaim a piece of herself, the guilt rushes in. You're selfish, you're ungrateful. After everything they did for you, that guilt is not truth. It's the weapon used to keep her in place. A tool passed down through generations to ensure obedience, but the price of obedience is authenticity, and without authenticity, even love feels hollow. Many good daughters are deeply spiritual. They feel things intensely. They believe in healing, kindness, growth. But this spirituality often turns into spiritual bypassing. They use forgiveness to avoid anger. They use compassion to excuse abuse. They call trauma lessons and suffering karma. And in doing so, they stay in toxic roles out of a false sense of enlightenment. Real healing doesn't mean becoming softer. It means becoming braver. It means allowing yourself to feel anger without shame, to set boundaries without apology, to admit that not everything your mother taught you was love. It might have been fear wrapped in expectations, and it's okay to question that. It's more than okay. It's necessary. The good daughter often doesn't realize she's trapped until her body begins to speak. Chronic fatigue, anxiety, autoimmune issues, a nervous system in constant overdrive. That's what happens when your soul whispers for years and no one listens. So the body starts screaming. It says, you were never meant to carry this much. You were never supposed to live for someone else's approval. But she doesn't know how to stop. Stopping feels dangerous. Because who is she if she's not useful? Who is she if she's not the good one? These are not rhetorical questions. They're survival questions. And they must be answered if she wants to live on her own terms. One of the cruelest aspects of this trap is how isolated it feels. Everyone sees her as lucky, as strong, as loved. No one sees the nights she cries quietly, not knowing why. The mornings she wakes up feeling empty, despite having everything. That's the loneliness of living inside a role. It gives you applause but never connection, respect but never real intimacy. And when she tries to break free, the backlash comes. People say she's changed, that she's cold, that she's abandoning her roots. But she's not abandoning anyone. She's finally returning to herself. True loyalty is not about staying silent. It's about telling the truth with love. It's about choosing wholeness over approval. And the good daughter who chooses to break the cycle is not betraying her family. She's saving her lineage. She's saying, it ends with me. No more emotional inheritance of guilt. No more shrinking to fit someone else's comfort zone. She becomes the woman who gives the next generation permission to live fully, to love without conditions, to be good, not in the obedient sense, but in the sacred sense of being true. Have you ever felt like your goodness was just a mask for fear? Let's talk about it in the comments. Your story might set someone else free. And remember, the first pinned comment has resources curated for your healing. don't leave without checking it out. Healing the mother wound doesn't mean cutting ties. It means cutting the invisible strings that have tied your identity to someone else's pain. It means finally looking in the mirror and seeing you, not the daughter, not the caretaker, not the fixer. Just you. A woman who was never too much. A soul who was never meant to stay small. There is no easy path here. Because breaking free from these roles feels like dying, until you realize it's actually a birth. A birth into your truth, into boundaries, into self-respect. And yes, it's messy. Yes, people may not understand. But what's the alternative? Living a life where you're loved for who you pretend to be? Now it's your turn to become the mother your inner child needed, to speak to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, to choose yourself without guilt, and to stop asking for permission to exist in your full voice. So take a breath, place your hand on your heart, and ask the question that breaks the cycle. What do I need to stop carrying today? Then listen. Your body knows, your soul remembers. What part of this message hit you the hardest? Let me know in the comments. Your story might be exactly what another woman needs to hear right now. And don't forget, the first pinned comment has a selection of powerful tools and readings to support you. Check it before you leave. It's not just content, it's part of your healing. Finally, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're building something sacred here, a space where truth is welcome and silence no longer wins.